Okay, I'll start by sharing my screen and seeing yourself. Okay, so tonight I would like to cover how to develop plugins for Godot engine. This is gonna sound a bit more like software development, but since Godot is still a game engine mostly, it's kind of like uh, my premise here is that I would like to design the plugins the way I'm designing my game interfaces, that sort of thing. I'll try to keep it as short as possible because this topic could go for a while. Bit about me. I did web development for more than 15 years. And of last year, I started my own company, game studio. And I'm basically trying to transfer my knowledge from the web industry to the game industry. That's why I tend to tackle advanced topics like plugin development and other tools like that. So besides that, I'm developing an ambitious simulation game, which is going to use these like my own plugins. But I thought since I'm developing my own plugins, maybe other people out there might need a better workflow for their own game. So today's agenda will be how to create a plugin, and then we will look at the interface of the plugin and how we introduce it to Godot, and then maybe we can work out with other Godot systems. I'm going to be brave and do this live instead of slideshow. So here goes nothing. Nope, wrong Godot. Okay, this is the right Godot interface. So I have a basic project here. There's nothing going on except one plugin installed for us, which is a plugin refresher from Will Nations Dev. This is a super helpful plugin that while you are developing your own plugin, it basically helps you so that you don't have to come to this interface and enable and enable and disable your plugin each time you make an update. Your plugin name will be listed here so that you could just save your code and then refresh your plugin. So let's go and create our plugin. So this following this structure, yeah, we are right there. So this is how you create a plugin. That interface is accessed via project settings, create, and here is our first plugin credentials. So subfolder is going to be most likely the plugin name. Script name, the suggestion is that we type plugin GD. Do this, and all the rest is up to you. Let's actually call it Godot Toronto. That's it, and we want to activate it now. So we have officially created a plugin, except it's not doing anything and it's not really visible anywhere except we have access to its code. This is the refresher that I was talking about. From now on, we'll just make our changes and refresh it. So when we did this work, there is the plugin GD, but there's also another file that is created for us, which is this CFG file. You look inside this file. This is basically telling you that this plugin is going to start up with this script. If your plugin code requires a lot of scripts, and naturally it's going to require a lot of UI components, so maybe you want to break this folder down by a folder like scenes, another folder like scripts, and whatever. If you happen to push your script files into a scripts folder, you got to update this reference. Unfortunately, this CFG is not accessible within Godot, so this is the only thing maybe you have to keep in mind. This is sort of the kickoff file. That's that. Okay. So we've just created a plugin, and now let's move to designing the plugin, so the UI of this plugin. Now, this is a plugin that I'm using for my own game. You could be creating plugins as complex as this with multiple tabs interacting with the file system and other things. But this is essentially like designing game interface. So these are built-in UI components. Um, so let's just create the most basic UI component. We have an empty scene. Let's put this control here. Let's call it interface and maybe a button. Why not? Maybe we'll do something with this button soon. So let's call it push the button and save the interface scene into our plugin folder. This is when I was saying you could maybe create different folders. So this is done, but this is still not introduced to the Godot interface. So we'll do that in this GD file, same file that was created for you. Which brings us to the next slide. Where do you want to attach your plugin? This is perhaps an important decision because maybe this decision, you don't have to decide it right away, right from the beginning. You could be moving the location of your plugin later. But there, you got to be careful at some point, meaning um, there is this in this code, enter tree and exit tree, that there is some kind of like cleanup done for you in Godot. If you're right in the middle of sort of switching the location of your plugin, you may have to restart the engine so that it actually takes it away from the previous position so you could inject it in the new one. And then from that point on, it's going to actually do everything seamlessly. The reason why I'm saying that location might change initially, this Urban Farmer Tools plugin that I wrote, this used to be part of the bottom panel here. Because I needed a lot more room, I actually moved it here. So your plugin requires a vertical space, maybe you'll stick it into one of these dock areas, that kind of thing. So these are your options. So as I mentioned, bottom panel is most likely like, that's a very good start. You decide to put it into docs, you have 8 options. So there is this, I think the way they call it is, actually, let's just see it in the code so we can mix. So we are going to add our user interface control, the plugin sort of control itself, to one of these 3 options. So the bottom panel is expecting a control and a title. So it's going to populate it here. Actually, let's start with this. We need the interface itself. Let's reload this interface. And you could instance this right away. Let's just stick that interface here under this title. And if you're adding control in enter tree, remember to clean it up when you're exiting. So I actually maybe stupidly copied it, but all I have to do is just maybe change it. So thing, except you don't need the string, perhaps something like this. Let's get rid of these past statements. So this should be good enough that when we hit the refresh plugin, we have our plugin displayed here. There was some kind of like bumping here. It actually put the interface for us, but it didn't know its minimum size. So it kind of put it there like as 1 pixel. This is just like any other game interface that you could decide its minimum size and all the other constraints. They work to a certain extent. Well, as you know, sometimes in game UI, the rest of the interface is limiting your options. You are bound by the same rules, but you could
So,
be. Go ahead.
I quick question. So I've kind of done this on my own for another project that I've been working on, and one of the issues that I had with this is actually getting the theming to
Mm-hmm.
match.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing right here that the theming is different. and it actually was breaking things because I had these kind of pixel perfect
Hmm.
layouts that would break. And so I ended up having to run not a plugin, but just like a Godot app that would do the thing I need, make the file, and put it where I want. Right. So is there any insight on that bit? Maybe that's for later, but it's just something that occurred to me. Is like that you're
Yeah.
getting the same thing that I was getting, where it looks way different than what my intention was, and it ended up breaking all kinds of things because like the spacing was all wrong, and
Yeah.
you know.
If your
But
UI needs to be pixel perfect, I would take a look at how you're designing your UI because it sounds like you're just doing something like with the wrong approach there.
yeah, I would say the same.
Um.
Yeah.
Well, not so much pixel perfect because I'm still using like H boxes and V boxes. Like I'm using the proper way of laying it out, but
Yeah.
it would like scrunch things up in a way the buttons wouldn't look right. You'd have overflows. Like it was just breaking horrifically. And I was trying to design the interface to look nice for my particular screen. Like the scaling doesn't work because it didn't match up, and like I thought it'd be easier to just have it match the Godot theme, right? Because then what you're editing is going to look like what it actually appears in the plugin, right?
Yeah. So right now this is using the editor theme, but you could assign your own theme, and it's going to follow your custom theme in your
Yeah, I didn't.
plugin. But here's the thing: if you are well, first of all, if you are doing this for your own sake, I don't think you should bother with a theme because it's just a plugin you use. If you are going to distribute this commercially, coming up with some colors and like design concern like that, that's a commercial thing that you are pushing. I mean, maybe not monetizing it, but even if it's open source, let's say, it's still going to look quite different than the interface for the sake of applying your own theme. So maybe it's better not to touch it. But what you are pointing out sounds like a different problem than a theming problem.
Yeah, maybe I'll
Yeah.
bring up my project and we could talk about it after then.
Yeah,
Sorry to interrupt.
sure.
Continue.
It's okay. So this is, as I was saying, like this is a very large area. Sometimes it makes sense to use the bottom area, but then you have options. You could be putting things into docs. So let's see that too. This is the time when, as I was mentioning, now that we have this interface edit to the bottom panel, if we start adding our UI to different parts, we may have to restart the engine because it doesn't actually trigger this right away. It kind of triggers this, then this, but at that point, the interface has already been added. So um, people should be aware of that because sometimes the behavior looks sort of weird. But these are your options in the dock slots. There is this left BL, which is on the left here, uh, bottom left, and then also on the left there is bottom right. So from my understanding, it means if you do left bottom right, it adds it to the right of this file system. So if there's this area, the right of the bottom right of the left side of the dock, and then you could also do something like left top right. It's going to edit here. So you have all these variations. So you could be adding it anywhere you want in these dock areas. You have
The
8 options.
default positions of the Godot docs are like the inner sides. So like the right of the left side and the left of the right side are
Yeah,
where the
yeah,
default docs are.
yeah,
So if you want your doc to be next to the default ones, it has to go left or right.
yeah, yeah. But again, it's kind of easy to like. It's not rocket science, right? You could do a few trials and errors, and then. But since you are the Godot engine guy, you know the defaults. Um, so I'm not going to demonstrate this dock part because I think it's clear enough. This is maybe more interesting, and most people might want to try something fancy. This is where you could actually get fancy. Um, let's comment this one out so that we know we're not going to run it accidentally. Start with add control again. So we have already seen bottom panel. We have kind of addressed dock, and there is also the container part. So in the container part, so here are your options. So you could have the sort of one of the major groups is canvas editor. Uh, this is a fancy way of saying that when you edit, it's going to be visible when the 2D view is in focus. And here are your options if that's the case. Let me just put a pass here so that. So when you're in the canvas editor, you could put it in the bottom or in the menu or side left side, right? What that means is, so let's look at these positional ones, bottom, side, left side, right? It's as if it divides this area, and if you say, okay, side left, it puts it somewhere here. I believe it automatically puts a divider, so you could actually adjust its size. And bottom is the same thing too. It puts a horizontal divider here and it puts it in the bottom. But don't confuse that bottom with the bottom panel. This is a separate area. What we are talking about is this viewport area for the 2D view. So the same story goes for other types. That so canvas editor. I'll actually address all of them. But let's look at the spatial editor. That's also another fancy way of saying it's the 3D editor. Same rules apply. And in between the spatial and the canvas editor, you have three options. You could be writing this plugin so that it is displayed in the project setting tab, left and right. It's basically this area. So I actually haven't tried anything like I have never put anything in this area. I'm not quite sure what tab left, tab right means, but I'm pretty sure it's going to inject something here. So again, you could be adding something to the project setting project. This property editor bottom, this property editor is essentially inspector. So maybe we could try this. You do this. Let's remember to put control on container. This, but I believe we need to find what we are putting. We have the same constraint here. Yeah. Let's try this. I'm kind of sure that this is going to be kept here, but we are going to trigger this line, which is going to add something here. And it did. This interface is a bit long, so I'm going to a bit short. Or maybe if I deselect something, could you guys see this? Push the button here in the inspector on the lower right.
I see.
Yeah. Okay.
Cut off a little bit, but
yeah. So today when I was testing this again, in one instance, it actually put it beautifully somewhere here. I don't know why it pushed it all the way down.
Maybe if you refresh it now.
Again, let me actually restart just in case, which is also going to clean the bottom part too. No, it's still there. Oh, I think I know why. Because this interface doesn't have a minimum size. That's what I was actually doing here. So if this is 300, refresh the plugin. So it actually occupies 300 pixels minimum size here, which still gives enough room for the. So you could be putting things here too. This is that. So we have covered properties, panel, canvas editor, spatial editor. There is we also mentioned project settings, and the last one is toolbar. This toolbar, I mean, we are already seeing a live example of it. When you edit to the toolbar, it adds it to this area. And same constraints apply. You gotta give a minimum width, so it actually pushes these things to the left. So that is another case. And of course, the big option, main screen. This means that you could actually show it with its own sexy icon. And that's exactly what I did with Urban Farmer Tools. This is one of the icons in the game. I actually put it here. So bringing your plugin to this kind of area is also easy, but it takes a few more function calls, and let's look at that. First of all, we will still have enter tree and exit tree, and let's keep those things there. One thing we have to do is we have to tell Godot that this plugin is now going to be on main screen or has main screen, so it's always true. I believe this is by default false. That's why other areas are prioritized. But this is going to force it to be here. That's number one. And we don't pass the instance of this interface around with a string name. In this case, we were typing a string name. Because that is not possible, we have to return the plugin name here. That is going to be value that we use. This is going to be displayed here. Similarly, we are going to get the plugins icon, and it is going to be this part is a bit fancy, but this is actually in the documentation too. You could look this up. We are getting the editor interface, and there is going to be a base control there, and among base controls, let's say this is actually letting you access the icons. I believe these are changing in Godot 4 because on Monday I looked at Godot 4 and all these plugins are not working because these paths are changing or have already changed in current latest version, let's say.
It is.
It is, right? So which disappointed me, but what can you do, right?
You're disappointed by things being better?
Yes, I'm hoping so. So let's put a spatial icon, and we are picking it from the editor icons. At this point, you could also do something like preload a PNG, and then that custom PNG is going to be your icon the way I did it here. So you could actually have your own icon. But let's go with the special icon. So what else we need? Has main screen okay, plugin name is okay. Oh, one last thing, which is also crucial. When your plugin is activated, either through a refresh here or you did it manually, whether this plugin triggers, like, is going to be visible right away, because all these things are kind of competing with each other. Meaning, you may have already noticed this behavior that when you're in the script view, if you click this control here, it takes you to 2D view. There's an internal mechanism that does that automatic switch for you. And if this was a 3D node, it would take you to 3D node. So there's I don't know if there's an order of precedence here, but this make visible is basically saying that you don't want to make it visible all the time, meaning first of all, if your interface exists, its visibility maybe is going to depend on whether this make visible is called explicitly. And I think once I make my case, it is going to be a bit more obvious. Normally, they suggest when you write this, you write false. But once you know that your interface is already active, so you can just change its visibility depending on maybe what you are doing here too. Just checking my notes. What else do I need? I, of course, have to now add this to this area. So we are going to need a special command similar to this. Is going to do the job. So let's disable all this. This is done by, in this case, we cannot rely on this. We have run out of these options here. We've already seen all of them. This is the part where we are gonna piggyback on editor interface again. So we are getting the whole interface itself. And here there is get editor viewport. This is the name that's surely changing Godot 4. I think they called it main control or something. Like there's a designated control name for this area. And we are essentially adding a child, which is our interface. And at this point, we say, well, when you edit, don't make it visible right away, just hide it. Because other things are going to fire first. Or that we kind of want, we want Godot to display one of these instead of our plugin. But I believe we could pass through here and then force it to be displayed too. And then here, this is something that I tried. This did not work. Because, I mean, this is tempting, right? Because we added a child. Let's just remove it here. This did not work. Instead, here, we go about it this way. If interface exists, then we just free it. So this actually takes care of it for us. So let's see if this is going to run. We will ignore this. This has been added here. Gonna stay there. You refresh it, and here's our awesome plugins. And when we click, it's the interface that we've been designing here in the studio view. But this is now our plugin in the main viewport. So now you can design full screen plugins. You could have your own, I don't know, maybe some kind of like a 3D model preview plugin, whatever you want to do. You have full access to the engine at this point. And it's not just down buttons. You could also write logic too. Let's actually write a script. I know that I'm going to need a label, so I'm going to change this to debux. Let's add a label. Label will be empty for now. Let's create this interface GD script, empty in the same folder. And we know we are going to push that button at some point, so let's bind it. And we just say, well, this labels text will be, I can type, okay, something like this. Now let's refresh our plugin, and I know 100% that this is not going to work, and I'll give you, if you guys know why it might not be working, go ahead, otherwise I'll tell you quickly. I won't let you suffer. This is supposed to work. We should see the text here. Any guess why it's not working? The answer is going to be in this file. I'm actually putting the fix right now on the first line. You have to make this to a tool. Yes. So this is going to work in the engine, not by itself. In sort of, this is not going to work in the compiled version, but in the engine context. So it has to be a tool. So when you do this and you refresh, go back to your plugin, push the button, and you are going to see the text. Now, by making that script a tool, you could run it like you're running a game. Everything about the scripts, about the engine, everything will work. You could be importing external files. You could be doing networking, multiplayer, all that stuff is going to be here. I mean, I'm really pushing the envelope. So, and this is all the other stuff you could be utilizing in your plugin script. This is already where we are. We are using an editor plugin, which is this. We are using editor plugin to write our plugin sort of binding code. At this point, this acts more like a normal script, but at this point, you also have access to all this stuff, which means you could be injecting the editor interface as a variable into your code. Show you what I mean by that. This script is part of this interface. So you could have some variable here waiting. This by itself doesn't have access to the editor interface. But when you are setting up your plugin, after you create this instance, at the time of adding it to your interface, you could be doing something like uh, this is going to have editor interface, and here you can create, oops, you could be creating an instance of the editor interface, and you pass, basically you're just injecting a dependency. And by the same token, you could be utilizing other aspects of the editor. So this plugin could very well be utilizing maybe importer FBX or maybe file dialog, things like that. So the possibilities are not just limited by your own UI, but everything in Godot is now available to you. So last words, caveats. So I already mentioned the cleanup. You gotta have this part taken care of. So you are either removing from containers or from the main panel. You have to free your asset. This is maybe not that crucial, like this is going to have memory leaks, but not removing from the interfaces and you are refreshing it. It's just going to keep adding more and more here. Like you're going to have an instance of it, another instance, another instance. So that's maybe like the most obvious one. The big thing here is you cannot really do debugging. So during your plugin development, because this code is not running at runtime, even if you are able to put a breakpoint, you won't know which line is giving an error. You have to guess it usually why it's not working, or like you are still going to get some errors here, uh, but you're not going to have the luxury of setting breakpoints and seeing like what a variable's value is at a certain point, especially with for loops, that kind of thing. It's going to be really difficult to follow. So at this point, your best um, debugging option is the good old print statement. This always works. This is going to use the output area, and this is your best friend. I mean, if it's really too long, maybe you want to write it into a file and then check the logs, that kind of thing. Um, so that's big. And also, as I mentioned, everything that I have shown tonight won't work 100% sure in Godot 4, and for good reasons, because other cool stuff is coming. So for the existing plugin developers, it's kind of bad news. They have to rewrite it or they have to change a lot of things. But that's life. I'm now ready to get your questions. And as usual, may your code run the first time.
I got no questions. That was actually helpful. And that one thing about having tool on top of every component
Yeah.
was actually breaking my plugin for me. I did not realize it
Yeah.
because it's just like I don't know the documentation. The documentation is good. It's just I missed that part. I was like, why
Mhm.
is this not working? Well, I give up and I did something else.
Yeah.
So I fixed that right now and it worked. Like this is a bug I've had for 3 months that I just left there. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Cool.
Thank you for mentioning that too, because that is the most common problem I think with
Yeah.
this. People just forget the tool keyword.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
run
Right.
into it myself several times.
I
Right.
forget it
Right.
myself too, to be honest. When I'm creating, like during the development of this, like this is a massive plugin. It has so many like tabs, a lot of moving parts. I forget it plenty of times. So it happens. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, I was gonna say is I had it at my root, so that was working, but then I didn't have it in the subcomponent. So I have like a graph editor, which I'm going to show here shortly, where
Yeah.
I let you do like dialogue, like a dialogue tree maker.
Yeah, like this
Uh,
one.
yep, yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Yeah. So
Cool. So yeah, you
Yeah.
could be doing fancy things like this too. Like this almost feels like a game.
Is this going to
yeah,
be?
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Is this presentation recorded
Yes.
or the slides? Okay, just want to make sure because I definitely would like to keep this out. I'll be right back. I'm so sorry.
Sure.
I wanted to thank you for running through all this stuff because I write a crud load of Unity tools. I just have no idea how to approach it in Godot.
Ah,
But also, just for clarity, when you add the tool keyword at the top of a script,
yeah.
does it prevent does it only run an editor, or do you still need to use those editor hints to figure out whether it's like runtime or
A
not?
tool script can run in both the editor and not in the editor.
That's
Okay,
the
thanks.
answer. Yes. So everything here is the same. So it's going to have the same functionality. This is the only thing that is required so that it functions without hitting this play button. It's as if it's sort of running in the engine while, or without the engine running the game, but the engine is still running the code. I probably said the same thing in a very long way. So. Any other questions?
Just thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome. So the Unity comparison is an interesting one because years ago I also fancied. People always said or claimed that developing editor interfaces in Unity was an easy thing. I actually tried it. It kind of looked easy, but then it really wasn't easy.
Like Odin, not too bad.
Yeah, but to me, the whole thing felt like I don't care if I'm sounding mean. I don't want to, but sometimes people find a certain process, they get used to it, and no matter how cruel or painful it is, they develop this sense of like bravado or sort of like through hardship and pain we are doing this, and they fool themselves that this is actually easy. It is not easy. In Unity, creating editor interfaces, people are honestly fooling themselves. Like, you write this only once, and honestly, this is the only line of code that you write here so that you can have your own interface root. And from that point on, it's just your own interface and whatever logic you are writing. This is the only thing that's really needed. Everything else, you're already, like, this is developing a game with the interfaces. So this compared to Unity, I honestly welcome Unity people to look at this and then just scratch their head like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, I feel sorry for them. This is how long it takes to,
It's all because Unity doesn't dog food their own UI system.
Yeah.
The actual Unity editor UI is made in a separate toolkit from games made in Unity,
Yeah.
which is a big mistake.
And this is kind of like the thing that sometimes comes up in forums. Is Godot using its own UI system that is used to build games? Yes. Like, in a sense, Godot is kind of using Godot to display itself.
Godotception.
Yeah, exactly. So when you have that kind of functionality, you could compose Godot-like interface, make them your plugin. So that's the whole power, right there. You have the full power of the engine, in other words.
Also, there's just the simple fact that Godot's UI system is really good.
It is, yeah, very good.
You can give me the cards. I'll look at it. I'll read it later.
I'm curious to ask a like professional UI designer what their thoughts are of.
Yeah.
Because I know Unity moved over to allow like CSS and HTML for its UI system.
Mm-hmm.
Display developers. So I'm curious what those kind of.
The biggest fundamental difference between Godot's UI system and HTML CSS is that HTML and CSS are mostly behaving as an inside-out system, and Godot's UI is an outside-in system. So in Godot, you typically are saying like what boxes go where. Like this part of the screen is for the dock, this part of the screen is for this, and then you put things in those boxes. You keep using containers and stuff, but then that might not work too well for like a forum website with dynamically sized content. Like if you want the size of somebody's reply box to be bigger depending on if they have text in there. And you can totally do that in Godot's UI system, but it's not designed for it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So in other words, this is something I'm gonna have to try soon for my Urban Farmer game. If I want to render a web page, it doesn't respect, like it doesn't know how to render it. In other words,
You cannot use Godot to render a web page.
yeah, I tried and I failed, and I'm probably gonna come up with my own 2-3 column restraints, and I'm going to randomize the view so I can pull in the content and distribute to different places. So I can have pretty looking like a top right corner image and some text flowing around it. That kind of thing that is done easily with CSS, it is not renderable in Godot. But it's not a big loss in my opinion.
Right.
Does anyone know if there's a module for that? Because I feel like you could use like a Chromium interface.
There
Would
isn't,
be
but if somebody wants to make that, that would be an interesting add-on. But I would not use it personally because scenes and the control nodes are just really good. Like I mentioned, it's got
I
set in.
prefer
That's
like
helpful
massively.
in a lot of situations, more than it's like a hindrance.
So maybe I might be talking nonsense, but with headless browsers, what if you make a like within Godot you make a call to the file system or like to a process, a headless browser, which takes a screenshot of a certain web page. So the page itself is not going to be functional in Godot, but we are basically pulling an image into a viewport here.
That might not. That'd be probably. Well, if you're just doing like a single image render,
Yeah,
probably wouldn't be too bad. But if you're like trying to have it update every frame,
yeah,
that might be a little bit messy. I think really the way to do it is to take the Chromium
yeah,
C++ interface and create
yeah,
a module for it and
yeah,
plug it directly into whatever Godot's render uses in the backend.
yeah.
If we ignore that, that would be a lot of work. I would say that would be the second best solution.
Yeah.
The best solution, in my opinion, is just to make a system to display the information you want with control nodes. And then I guess the third best option would
Yeah.
be just os.execute and then open up the default browser.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Probably also depends on your needs. At Stardock, we used our own homebrew engine, so we took the route of using a Chromium interface to directly output our overlays. It was.
By the way, I turned off the screen sharing, assuming that there is no other question about the presentation.
My only question would be, could you do that all again in C sharp? But basically, what would how hard? Not how hard, but
It's the same thing with different syntax.
okay.
Yeah.
It's the same with GD native as well for any other C++ people out there.
So all those code calls are triggering the engine API. Under the hood, it's resulting in the same as. Sorry.
It's pretty cool that way.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on the Godot versus HTML bit. I'm a web developer by trade. That's what I have to do for my normal job, and the control nodes are so much better. And normally when I build web pages, because I build Spire applications, single page applications, I build everything above the fold anyways. Like I don't like scrolling pages. I think that's a bad design for most things, unless it's a forum or something. If it's a business application, you shouldn't be scrolling around trying to find stuff. It should all be on the screen or hidden in a tab, and you can do that with Godot. So
the big use case for that kind of stuff is to integrate with like standard interfaces.
Sure, or you need a library. Yeah, it depends on what you're trying to do. But
for example, at Gearbox, we have a overlay. Like if you go into any of our games, we have the shift overlay, and every engine that uses that, we have standard stuff for Unreal and for Unity.
Right.
So
we can't do that with Godot, so we would have to find a workaround. But we don't support Godot, unfortunately. So.
I'm just saying I hate CSS. That's all I'm really saying.
I agree. I agree.
So I just noticed Aaron is streaming too, and I just hit the watch stream. And since I'm recording, we'll share this with the rest of the world too. Do you want to talk about maybe your own plugin, Material Creator plugin? That's what I'm seeing.
This is actually inside of the Godot demo projects repository. It's just a collection of simple plugins that you can test out and take a look at how they're developed. In the add-ons folder, there's 4 different ones here. There's this material creator where we can like set a color and set like these values.
Yeah.
Click on it and then apply it, and that's interesting. There's a material import plugin, but this is like a custom file format that gets imported using this GDScript code. So you can, like, if you have a file extension that's not supported by Godot, you can just write your own plugin to import it.
Yeah.
There's the main screen plugin, which you showed a little bit how to use. This is not too much more fancy than that. It just, there's a little button here to print to the console. And then there's also a custom node plugin. So this actually just creates a node called a heart that has its own drawing code to draw a heart.
Cool.
And it's super simple.
Nice. It comes with its own node icon as well, like in the editor.
Yep, and that's done. If we take a look at here,
yeah,
you can set the icon inside of the add custom type.
Yeah.
You give it a name, the base type, and then the script, and then the icon.
And also for the audience, when you do this, if you go to 2D view, if you want to add a new node, that icon is also going to be available in the yeah.
Yes.
It's also going to be available here too.
Also note that the icons are not scaled, so that's actually 16 by 16 pixels. If you put in like a 200 by 200 pixel image, it'll just be huge.
Yeah. Here. So some conditions apply.
Yep. And I just changed the window that I'm sharing. This is my biggest project in Godot. It's very much incomplete, but it's a Git client made in Godot.
Wow. Very cool.
I'm designing it to be like dual mode, where it can either be standalone or in the editor. So far, it's just in the editor, but like these docs, like I can just take the control nodes and put it into a project. So I can have 2 fundamentally different things with one code base, which is really cool. And I have so that when we click over, it hides everything. So all the Git stuff is gone, and then when I click here, it shows all of the docs. So now the whole screen is just for this.
So this is thanks to that enter tree, exit tree that you are doing a cleanup when you switch modes.
Yep.
Yeah. Those 2 functions are super important so that you don't accidentally leave things. Because yeah, go ahead.
I'll go into the code for that, and we can take a look at how this is set up. Make visible,
yeah.
And then it adds. I have a function called triad, which handles some weird errors I've gotten. But yeah, just basically add when it's visible, remove when it's not.
Yeah, this is a much more advanced case than the one I presented, but it's essentially using the same add control to places function calls.
And yeah, it's actually it does this add-on does actually work. So I added a line there. If I go into the Git history, I changed the plugin.jd so it broke it. But if I reload it and I'll change something else, and then go into Git history, look at that.
Yeah.
There's a file that I can stage and make a commit for.
Oh, that's slick. I like that.
So now there is really no excuse not to use Git in Godot. Like when people say Git's in the way of my game development, well, it's built in, man.
Yeah. By the way, there is actually an official Git add-on, but
yes,
it's
Yeah. Yeah, I tried to use the official one. It looked clunky. This looks much more well thought out.
Yeah, I like the use of overriding the windows or adding windows based on the mode. So it almost makes that top row like a mode selector that just changes all your outputs. That's really, if I had known that, I might have done this a little differently. So
Yep. I've actually also got a little settings menu here, so I can turn that off if I
yeah.
want to.
And
Mm-hmm.
actually, I'm looking at the code. It actually doesn't look difficult to implement either. So
Yeah.
Yep. I'm willing to share any of this code, but the project as a whole is very unfinished. So
So I have a question for Joseph. A while ago, when you and Andrew presented your project Tetraforce, and it was about using tiled with Godot, you guys talked about custom importer with this plugin approach and reading custom file types. A new way of working with plugins. Maybe that could give you guys a fresh, take on the project.
Have a There's the standard tiled importer, which is a plugin that we use,
Yeah.
but that wasn't enough for our needs, so we had to make major modifications to it.
Let's see.
But we do use it, but it's kind of like a clunky modded version. So it's not homebrew either. So it's I definitely I actually plan to use plugins a lot in a few upcoming projects I'm working on.
Nice. I see that we have 8 people, so that's the highest we've ever had. So
I
nice.
think we've had more before. I
I
feel like
don't
when I
think so. I think it was 7. Now we're 8. So
oh okay, I felt like we had a lot my first week, but
yeah, that was when you first joined. That was the highest we had at that point. Tonight is a new record, and that's without the usual suspects.
yeah, I almost skipped tonight too. I was like, I don't know, I'm tired.
Yeah.
I pushed through it.
I hope it was worth it.
It was actually because I fixed 2 bugs. So
Cool.
while you were doing it, I was like, oh,
Cool.
that's the moronic thing I'm doing.
Cool.
So
By the way, during I'm still looking at the stream, and I'm seeing measuring tape and other nodes that are not built-in things, but they look like custom nodes.
figured I would just take the opportunity to showcase
Yes.
an add-on that I made. It's a measuring tape, and there's both 3D and 2D versions. But what it lets you do is like just measure the distance between 2 points, or you can even do like the area. So this is like measuring like how many square meters is this box, or volume, and I could change it to like cubic inches. Like there's a whole bunch of units I made.
Cool.
The same thing in 2D as well. And because scale in 2D is subjective, you can change the scale of the measuring tape in 2D.
And this is all thanks to that keyword tool, so that without running the scene, it's executing the code that is responsible for rendering this.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I have the tool keyword here, and then a whole bunch of stuff.
Yep. The rest is the business logic. Yeah. Nice. So in essence, exposing either plugin interface or doing things like this in the 3D view isn't that hard. It's just one keyword. The rest is your own business logic, which is hard enough anyway. But that's your own problem. In other words, Godot itself is not getting in your way of developing the logic that whatever you want to do, with your plugin.
Yeah,
That's the best takeaway I can have, like, about the process.
This is the entire plugin.gd as well.
well, the introduction of the plugin is this, but the plugin that is doing the job is, of course, quite long, I bet. But again, that's just the problem itself is complex.
Yeah, it's just like making a game, as you said. It's just
Yeah.
video scripts.
So I hope since we are recording this, and if people in other parts of the world, if they happen to watch the footage later, I hope we can convince a bunch more people developing plugins that how easy it is. So it's easy or hard as developing your own game, but developing plugins should no longer be a nightmare.
Yeah, with that, I think I am gonna. I've been kind of holding back on doing the narrative stuff. It basically works, but
Yeah.
I need to make it a plugin now because all of this is actually super helpful. And I'm gonna do what I think it was Aaron or Joe, I forget, who was showing the GitHub repo thing. Like that's cool. I'm gonna implement something like that for the dialogue tree tool because that's way better than anything that's out there. So.
Now, before you do that, I do want to mention, I also do moderating on the Godot asset library,
Mm-hmm.
and dialogue plugins are like real common. There's like more than 5 like competing dialogue systems.
Sure. Yeah, I wrote my own because my needs were very, very narrow and specific, and I found the other tools a little heavy, and I was looking for something a little more dirty, a little quick and dirty. So I did research those. I researched Dialogic and I played around with it, and I found it. I didn't quite have the control that I wanted, and it had some theming that was too aggressive. Like they were doing a lot of theming in code, like after the fact, after it loaded, so I couldn't force my own styles on it. And there were some things about it that I wasn't a fan of, even though it is a cool plugin. So I ended up writing my own.
Have you ever looked at ink?
I have. So at least from my workflow, the way I'm building everything is I'm basically just using a database to access everything. And then I wrote my plugin system to basically custom build the things that I wanted. And I wanted to use Godot because I didn't want to have to learn a new tool. I was like, okay, I already have everything set up. I can just write SQL and have the SQL in the plugin and have the plugin in the same project as my database. So it's all living in the same place. And it's in the same repo. It's just easier for me, you know. Ink is cool though. Ink is very cool. So
Very nice. So we could talk about anything else too, not specifically plugins. That was the main topic of tonight. But once the main content is, we exploited enough, also socializing too. So feel free to bring up your own questions, comments, sources about guidance, that kind of thing. Another time, so like one time we do presentation and another night we do show and tell. That's like the main focus on your project if you want to show off something. We sometimes use the rest of the presentation night for showing your work too. This is now the most casual part of the night, so feel free to bring up any subjects. Not necessarily Godot, I mean.
all right, guys, no pants.
It's still being recorded though. Be careful.
We're casual, man. It's fine.
Yes.
All right. I'm actually gonna go because I'm tired. I
Okay.
want to go to bed.
Okay.
Getting
So
punchy.
thank you for coming.
Yep. No, it was a good class.
Okay.
I learned a lot.
Cool.
So
Cool.
good to meet everybody.
Okay. See you in 3 weeks.
Catch you later.
Bye. Still online. Okay. There's.
Well,
Okay.
hello everyone. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Red. You can call me that. You can call me Ben. That's my real name.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm new. I got invited to the server. I don't even know where Toronto's located. I'm assuming the US. I'm all the way here in Australia, so bad ping, as some of you might know.
So, considering the hour difference, it must be early morning there.
Yep, it is 11 a.m.
Cool. So yeah, there is some question whether Godot Toronto is it Toronto anymore. Well, I mentioned this in the general room, the server. We started off as a meetup group, so it was officially Godot Toronto. With the pandemic, it's kind of lost its meaning. The name is still Godot Toronto, but we welcome people from all over the world. So we'll maybe switch to physical events when everything calms down. But I'm planning to do online events too in the future if we go back to the physical format, because we have so many people. Actually, we have so few people from Toronto, to be honest, and I don't want to lose all the nice people we have met. So if you know other people who might be interested in Godot events, so despite the name, they're all welcome.
I still plan to go back to Toronto, whether
Yes.
the meetups there or not.
So Joseph he's a brave soul, because I think this was either the first or the second meeting of the group, of like the official second meeting, and we were supposed to meet in a coffee shop in Toronto. And by the way, I don't know, Red or Ben, you were making a joke whether Toronto is in America or not, but it's actually in Canada. Sorry if I'm being very obtuse about it, but
Oh, okay.
okay. So basically, Joseph during the day, sometime in the morning or lunch hour, he asked me a question through Meetup. He asked me about parking locations near the coffee shop in Toronto. And I left for lunch. I got back. I'm like, okay, and like I replied, his question, and he asked, I think, for something else. And I'm like, this sounds like it sounds like this dude is gonna drive all the way from Michigan, United States, to Toronto, Canada, and the distance is like 4 or 5 hour drive. He's gonna have to cross the border. I'm like, there's no way he's coming to this meeting. So the meeting was 7 p.m. as usual, but he showed up. He basically pretty much started to drive, I guess, after he read my mail or something like that. So we hung out, and then he had to cross the border again after the meeting was finished. So, yeah,
It was like hours of driving for 1 hour of meetup.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I think right at the beginning we were an international group anyway. So,
That's amazing.
It was worth it though, because like, me and Kumsal and all the other gang is good. I wasn't actually officially like a game dev career at that point, but it started turning.
yeah, you had a game that you had made in a game jam, which had green colors and like platformer logic, if I recall.
It was like a platformer with really, really terrible random generation. That was my first game ever in Godot, and I have a small backlog now. Some good, some bad. Most
Yeah,
bad.
but it looked so impressive because it was using procedural stuff, if I remember.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was doing some. I was just generating rooms and connecting
yeah,
them. It wasn't really thinking about a whole lot of platformer logic, so there was a lot of like soft law. It was a mess, but it was my first time using Godot, and I made it in a week, so
yeah.
give a little bit of slack there.
Now here we are. So yeah, we kept in touch, and I basically decided at some point that while the pandemic was going on long enough, that I said, okay, let's carry it to Discord, and let's keep meeting people. I don't know really the future whether it will be Discord based, whether I will actually open Discord. Like right now, the link is kind of hidden behind a meetup sign up page. I might actually open it more to the public. So
I was gonna say I found it because it was based in Toronto.
ah,
I've been in Toronto for like 10 years
cool.
doing games. So
So you and I might go to a different meetup since we are both in Toronto. There used to be a game development meetup group that we used to meet on Saturdays. We no longer do that. Well, this is why. But there's also a physical sort of meeting chance too, sometime in the
yeah,
also do
that's
a
awesome.
Sorry, someone said something that I couldn't hear the rest. I don't know who spoke.
You could also do like a hybrid event. So like the person presenting is on Discord, and then people could also walk in the building.
Yeah.
My studio's fully remote. We're not getting rid of our studio space. It's right near the Ghost Station, which is nice. There's so like we could do potentially when things return
Yeah.
physical there, and
Yeah.
either we have a projector space for anyone who's outside the physical location presenting, as
Yeah.
well as all the rigs and sound equipment needed to present
Yeah.
from there and still stream out. So
Capture the
that's
sound.
also
Yeah.
it's also a possibility. That's where we host the Unity meetups.
Interesting.
But we won't do them on the same night because that would be contentious.
Yes. When you said Unity building, you mean Yukon Games?
Yeah, I'm a principal technical artist at Yukon.
I used to attend the Unity meetings. Yeah, there. Your office used to be on King Street. Then you guys moved to the same building on CBC building.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. We'll meet at some point for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I miss all the physical, in-person stuff. It was tapering off even before the pandemic.
So then, you also use Unity, or you know enough, or are you fully into Godot, or I don't know. Like this is maybe a controversial topic.
It's not controversial. I've been using Unity full time for about 10 years. Lua, XNA, and Objective C before that, for various reasons. Before everyone used the one engine, we were all using weird random stuff. And you know, to riff on what you guys were saying earlier, I didn't want to jump in because I would sound like I was defending. But I am very comfortable in the Unity toolset, like extremely comfortable in the Unity toolset, and it scares me from a career standpoint. But also, they keep adding stuff, and my current job is basically connecting like 10 different Unity frameworks at various levels of production ready, to make things production ready, and I need to be productive in my free time and not open Unity because it spikes my heart rate sometimes. So I've been learning Godot and really enjoying myself because when I was first learning all this stuff, it was an XNA with like flat red ball and Flixel and Flash and all that stuff. And it feels like that because I don't know. There's not this giant weight of Unity above me. I don't know what it is, but
I
something
used
about
to love Unity, but for the last 3-4 years, especially, it doesn't feel like they have in their heart, or like it's not in their best interest. It's as if they are following a different path. The engine gets cluttered, or like for for almost a decade, people kept asking, like, bring us nested prefabs, and it took them like literally more than a decade. That thing is, when I first got to know Godot, I mean, it was already built in. It was not an issue. That kind of thing should not be an issue, you know. That kind of thing pushed me away very quickly from Unity, but I was learning it quite. I was really doing my best to learn it, but then I'm like, the more I learned, the more I saw sort of kinks, and like, and this is turning into one of those. We have too many commercial worries about this product kind of things. Like, okay,
they IPO'd.
Yeah, that was
and they
actually
were prepping to IPO like 3 or 4 years ago, and that's when I was like, probably things are going to change, and I should be less of a Unity only person and more of a broad skill based kind of person.
But for me, from a more practical point, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, I still think it's a good engine. It's just they made some interesting decisions as of late, and they seem honestly it looks like they're even trying to like stop targeting indie developers and small developers and go like at like factories in the industrial sector.
Yeah,
that it's very.
Going to see you guys later.
Weird.
See ya, man.
See ya.
Nice meeting you. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah. Next time, hopefully. So let's give a chance to. Well, I guess everybody introduced themselves, right? I don't want to miss anyone, but the list. So, Aaron, you mentioned you are part of the Godot core development team, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
What parts of the engine do you mostly focus on?
Various parts. I do a lot of the work on the mono module for C Sharp. Although ironically, in practice, I use GScript a lot more than C Sharp these days. I'm like one of the 2 people in charge of the mono module, just because very few other engine developers are actually interested in that for some reason.
Very cool.
Probably just because GScript is so good. And then I also do other things around the engine, a lot of things like the core and cleaning up things. I like to make it so that Godot is very like modular. So like you could pull things if you don't need something in the engine, you can just compile a version without it. And I try to make sure that Godot is like properly allowing you to do that by like not having dependencies where there shouldn't be.
Thank you. That is my biggest gripe with Unity, to be honest, is that it requires you to have so much stuff. It just keeps adding up. And I have this fear with Godot that it eventually will have the same problem as it develops. But I'm very very happy to hear that.
Yep. The biggest thing in that regard that I've been working on is I have a branch of Godot that allows you to build the engine without 2D support, and I even made that work in the editor too, just in case you wanted to make like a UI only project, or if you wanted to make a 3D game without any like no 2D stuff.
That's pretty good, especially with like tool development where standalone tools they don't really need like the 3D render or anything.
Yeah, there's Godot does already have its disable 3D like compile option, but it doesn't do very much. So I'm trying to make it do more things. Like currently, when you disable 3D support, it still compiles the engine with Node 3D and all of the resources for 3D. It just disables like a couple nodes.
Interesting.
Yeah, so resource management wise, when it's off, it really means off. Sort of cynically, left behind.
Yeah, the code will be just absent.
Yeah.
And actually, I have a tool that I can use to see like which files in the engine and which folders are contributing to the space of the engine. So I can like say, oh, the resources folder is using up 10% of the size of the engine. Let's see how we can make that smaller.
That's actually really really good and cool to hear that you're working on that.
Yep.
One of the
Although I think the biggest challenge I've had so far is that like it's hard to convince the Godot developers. I mean, the other ones that this is like a needed feature, because one of them is just adamantly against like, no, we shouldn't allow disabling 2D because Godot is not meant to make UI projects, even though it totally can.
Yeah.
I understand why they'd be hesitant to it, especially like since I do pretty much like a network engine development in Gearbox. Um, like it's easier to not have that kind of stuff and just work to fix problems as much as possible. But I think it's important for the 5-10 years down the road when new features are being added and old features are being deprecated. That's not a hassle. That's not going to break things. So, that's cool to see, and as well as things just being lightweight is.
Yep.
It's cool
I
to
just
see.
tossed a link into meeting notes. If you want to support what I'm doing, you can toss that in the upvote. And in there, I also have an image that you can look at, which shows like what things in Godot are actually contributing to like the space.
Cool.
And I think this image is for Godot 4. So what you're currently working with Godot 3 might be a bit different.
I work with a little bit with both. I'm doing some. So I work on an open source game that's GDScript 3.3. but I'm also building some tools for Godot for other in various states. Um, that's cool to see. I'm a lot more interested in Godot's 4 development than anything else because I see that it. As a developer, feel free to give correct me, but it feels a lot more commercial ready than or commercial focused feature wise than uh, than 3. Not that you can't do that with 3. Um, Godot 4 seems a lot more powerful, a lot more modular. Um,
Yep.
that kind of stuff.
There's just a lot of areas that the engine needs to improve, which is why they're trying to do so many breaking changes now while we have the chance. Because there's just so many to do.
So, Aaron, most likely tomorrow or sometime next week, I would like to have a conversation with you about Godot 4. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay. I have some private questions because I will have a kind of commercial endeavor. I kind of need to know about some dates. We'll talk. I'll ping you.
Yep.
Awesome.
Another thing that I do a lot of when I work on Godot is, do any of you know what double precision support means?
Precision support.
Unfortunately, don't.
Does it have
I'm
anything
not.
to do with floating point, all that stuff?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you know how like in C# and C++ there is the float keyword and the double keyword?
Yeah.
The double is twice as many bits,
Yeah.
and it's much more precise.
Yeah.
And you need it if you want to make a game like Star Citizen or otherwise on a huge scale. Like Minecraft uses doubles, and Arma 3 uses doubles, and Space Engineers uses doubles. Yeah. Most engines, but you just use the 32-bit floats. Unity does this. Unreal, up until this year, only had 32-bit floats as an option. Godot, up until this year, only had 32-bit floats as an option. Unreal added support for 64-bit doubles this year, and Godot now has that merged and will be available in Godot 4. So if you wanted to make Star Citizen, I'm not saying that Godot is powerful enough to make Star Citizen because that's got a lot of fancy graphics, but at least that limitation specifically is gone.
I think if Godot had the same team that Star Citizen has, it could. Because from my understanding, they do a lot of development on the. I guess it's Open 3D now, 3DE.
Yep, the engine has been renamed twice in the time since Star Citizen came about.
What? CryEngine's still around, I believe. It just got forked into Lumberyard.
Yeah.
Right, but then the original is not used anymore, except for projects already using it.
Why isn't there a new Crisis coming out in the original CryEngine, or not original, but the original branch?
I don't know much about that.
You're talking about the remastered Crisis.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, Crytek's still around and doing stuff.
No, it is around, but they are no longer licensing the engine. You cannot basically license to. Even if you wanted to pay, they don't actually sell it anymore.
I know that's.
So the version that you're talking about, yeah, it got forked and it's become Lumberyard. It kind of lives that way, but the old one is no longer accessible but to them, unless there is some other news that's changed.
Oh, with things with O3DD, things kind of got weird.
So Ben,
Yeah.
do you build games or do you build? Sometimes people use Godot to build software. People do different things with Godot.
Well, I'm very much a beginner in like this whole game dev world and like software making world. I've programmed for a couple years now, and recently, well, I thought Unity was honestly a bit too hard, like overwhelming with just the amount of features, like, and how it can't, I guess, the fact that it's not. I'm trying to get my words. Sorry.
It's okay. Take your time.
Like it's not like what appealed to me about Godot is its small file size and how much it just runs better. Honestly, like with Godot, you're not so overwhelmed with the amount of features, and like because when I was starting Unity, I was just like, where do I start? And even when I looked up the tutorials, I just felt myself lost because it honestly wasn't a simple process to kind of transition from regular programming to more like I'm just gonna say more of like a hands-on approach, like game dev. It was a hard transition with Unity, but with Godot, it just felt a lot more simpler because, like, with small communities, I feel like it's a lot better because if you have large communities, then things just get out of hand and there's too many people to kind of do anything. But with small communities, like everyone's there because they have an actual interest and passion in doing it. And so when I found Godot in the Godot Discord, I just felt right at home because it was just so much easier and I personally liked it that much. So in terms of what I've been doing with Godot, well, my first Godot project was a simple like 2D platformer to just get the core basics working and seeing what I could do in 2D. Now, my current project is I've been working more with 3D and using Xyland's voxel engine to hopefully one day make a Minecraft clone just to see how much I can look deeper into game mechanics and how they are developed in general. Because I'm not a game designer myself. I'm more of a programmer. I just develop.
Cool.
That's
So
awesome.
maybe other people will find your experience similar. Like they are on the fence between Unity and Godot.
A lot of
Good.
a lot of the people I know have found Unity easier to pick up just because of the size of the community. It like because like a lot of beginners, I find that they if they can't find the solution to their problem on YouTube, they never find the solution to their problem. And there's a lot less videos on YouTube for Godot. But I think Godot has the advantage of if you actually get involved in the community and you come to meetups like this, it's a lot easier to get information. I mean, you don't go into a Unity Discord channel and then one of the Unity devs just pops in to hang out and say hi. That doesn't happen. You know?
To be fair, I'm like the only exception to that in Godot, though.
I mean, like iFire as well. I think he's pretty active in the Discord.
He drops it occasionally, but he's not as active, I'd say.
Sorry, I probably missed the name. Who jumps in sometimes?
iFire.
Yeah. His real name is Ernest Lee. Also known as iFire. He is a Godot developer that primarily works on the import process. So like when you have like a 3D model, how does it actually get into Godot?
See, so well, one day in Godot Toronto, if you could have Juan Linietsky, then that's it. That would be like the ultimate things. Like even if they for Unity to top that, they would have to bring like their CEO, something like that.
I got a quick question for y'all. How much, in general, do you know about like the Godot development and the Godot developers?
I was gonna say actually that one of the reasons I have like faith in Godot is trawling their GitHub issues to see how they handle that kind of stuff. I was trying to do a Cinemachine type thing, and I stumbled upon the interpolated camera stuff and how it got just like deprecated and removed. And I was like, why? And someone tweeted about it, or it was in the issue listing or something, and someone was like, this is pretty negligible to make our engine should be leaner and shouldn't include this stuff if it's like relatively simple to develop on your own. So I've also opened up I've added it to this, like, I don't know if it's a third-party Godot plug-on thing or something, but they made an improved interpolated camera that you can pull down if you want. And I
Yeah.
thought, especially since at work I deal with Unity's package manager and just like millions of dependencies and like keeping everything ASM deft manually and making sure everything's right. Um, and that was really valuable to me. And I think it also ties into what Ben was saying about learning the two of them. I feel like right now with Unity, you have the noise to signal is awful. There's old videos that don't apply anymore, but you'd never know
Yeah.
because it was one version ago. You know what I mean? And also, you open up the editor, and it throws everything at you, and you just need to kind of like strip away the stuff you don't care about. And Godot, I find, throws very little at you, and you need to dig in to find what you want. Um, and just the last little bit for context, I forgot one of the reasons I picked up Godot is because my 12-year-old son hit the edges of Scratch. He made like a tile-based map generator or something in Scratch, and I was like, it's time to stop dragging blocks and do something with code. And we did Godot because I wanted to learn it too. So we've been learning it alongside each other. He pulls me out of work to go fix his bugs.
Cool.
And it's been a lot of fun, but it's also been, especially since a lot of my job involves mentoring non-technical people, working with artists and writers and animators and stuff like that. It's been really interesting to see sort of the UX and ramp up on Godot versus something like Unity, where I find my job as a tool developer on Unity involves hiding a lot of stuff so that they don't shoot themselves in the foot. And on Godot, it involves, just kind of exposing the three things you'd need.
Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting point.
Cool. So from you brought up a different aspect, like the mentoring aspect. How do you teach the tool? Like, besides learning it on your own, but there's also another layer, like you mentioned. Like, how do you teach both tools to the same person? Like, in comparison, what is the mileage there? So with the interpolated camera, when I tried Godot 4, they have like only 7 items available if you hit the asset library view, one of which is interpolated. So they actually introduce it as a plugin now. And who is sharing their screen? Aaron. Okay, so you are going to show us Godot extended libraries. Go ahead.
Yep. So in addition to like github.com/Godot engine, which has like all the official stuff, Godot extended libraries is like the next best thing to official. So it's technically like a separate organization. It's not managed by the people that manage Godot, but like the people in this organization are also Godot developers, or at least several of them are. I've told you about Fire already.
Yeah.
Kalanu,
Yep.
or Hugo Lukobrico, is let's just say that if you find Godot to be easy to use, this is the person that you should thank for that, because this person has made like 1,000 tiny improvements to the engine. It's just so much better. And then I'm in this list. Will Nations, you've probably seen him. He made the plugin refresher add-on.
Yep.
And he started this organization,
Resources
libraries.
To GD Native, by the way.
What?
He has a YouTube series about writing GD Native, and it's one of the best resources I've found on GD Native out there.
Yep. Well, Will Nations does a lot of the like scripting side of things. So GD Native and GD Script, he works on the engine too for a little bit of that stuff. And then also, X-Ray is a former Godot developer, but he was kicked out. But anyway, aside from the people in it, this organization hosts like things that are not like meant to be like official, but are like still really useful and general purpose. So like interpolated camera, this is where that lives. It's right here, and you can download it and everything. The biggest repo here is got to be Godot Next, which stands for Node Extensions. And basically what it is just a standard library of nodes that don't need to be core, but are still like general purpose and just generally useful. So there's 2D arrays, bit flags,
CSV.
CSV
Wow.
support, extra tools for the editor, a label that lets you debug things, trails. I wrote these 4 here. And yeah, there's just general purpose stuff. So I would highly recommend checking out this repo.
Nice. Could you drop the link into the meeting notes? I mean, if people watch it, they will actually see the path. But in case people don't watch, they could still, like, our members could find it in the meeting.
Yeah, I'll drop the Godot next link there.
Cool.
And
Thank
then
you.
if you want to get to the whole organization, you just click the name here.
When you said Godot next, for a second, my mind went to React JS next. I thought, no, that's a different next. But yeah, you explained it quite well. And there is that Godot SQLite there. So
yep. So if you need a database,
yeah,
that's here. If you need a better SVG library than the one that's included in Godot, you can check out this one. I think in Godot, the one that they currently use is Nano SVG, which is like tiny. So it's good it's like lightweight and stuff, but it doesn't include all the SVG features. And another big one, you've all seen this one.
Yeah.
Sure. Another big one in here is the Godot Fire, which is Fire's like experimental fork. So you can think of this like a staging branch or whatever. There's like a whole lot of experimental stuff in here. It's probably horribly broken, but like you can, if you want to help Fire develop something, you could like test his fork and give him a feedback or something. I don't know. It's there's a bunch of cool stuff in here. I don't exactly know what they are, but they're all related to like engine improvements for like importing resources like models.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so the community is small, but it's open source, and you could always, we feel. I mean, I'm not really contributing, but I feel like if I wanted to, whether they accept every single thing I propose, but at least I know my voice will be heard, and it's more than enough. It's about discussion.
That's not a guarantee, though.
Sorry?
That's really not a guarantee, though. At least not in a timely fashion, because one of the biggest problems that Godot has is that if we look at the engine organization, and then look at the engine, if I go to the pull requests and go to the last page, we can see that these were opened in 2018.
Oh.
So these are like pieces of code that people wrote 3 years ago that are still waiting for the developers to review it. And so a lot of the Godot developers love community contributions. However, the lead developer in particular, Juan Linietsky, he is more like a person that wants to do everything himself. So if he had like infinite manpower at his disposal, like he would, and like he could do everything, he would. But I mean, it's not realistic to do everything. But in a lot of cases, people will write like some code, and then he'll jump in and say, "Oh, that's a good idea, but I want to do it differently." So a lot of the time, like the contributions are like not at all guaranteed to be accepted.
I noticed that Will actually had a PR open for Godot 3 and Godot 4 to export to allow filtering resources when they're exported. Looks like they've been open for a while, right there.
Yep. Yeah. This one is not nearly as bad as some of the others. It's opened this year. Both.
Okay, yeah. I really want to merge though, so.
So basically, the merging is kind of limited by the main developer, like or
Yes, and in particular, this guy, Rami Vershelda.
ah
He does like 95% of all the merging in the repo. So he's like he's the project manager. Um, so he manages the projects.
yeah.
So
I
like
usually
a
see
lot
him
of our
share the release notes on Facebook, like the social media posts for announcing the upcoming or the latest version is done by him.
yep
I know he's quite busy. He and I have exchanged emails about the time Godot Toronto was going to be put on the official website as like under user groups, something like that. So I know he's quite busy. We
yep
should clone him.
yes we need two of him or really like 10. Yeah, the Godot's bottleneck is completely him because he does too many things honestly, and they probably should delegate the work, but like Juan Linieski doesn't really trust too many people. So this guy's trusted, and not many other people are trusted.
See,
It makes sense. There's so many projects out there that once they grow to a certain point, they start to have issues. So I can understand why he has those concerns.
Yep, quite quite a number of features that get submitted. Maybe like the majority are not merged as is. That like they'll be like criticized and modified and changed in some way because like the you really need like the people in charge to actually stop by and give their opinion to like know what's best for the engine because one person's use case is not everybody's. And several times, this has happened to me too. Like I've submitted something and I think, oh, this is an awesome feature, and I get a lot of the community to agree, and that's an awesome feature. But then the engine just will jump in and say, oh, we should do this in a different way because it's better. And most of the time, I'll agree with them. Sometimes I think they're wrong, but sometimes I think they're right, and like what they think of is something I've never thought of before.
hmm. See, that's maybe one of the major problems between open source projects versus proprietary. It's like designed by committee or designed by priorities. Sometimes companies set certain targets or they have different concerns. Something that looks feeble may have a, I don't know, financial value, things like that. There is benefit to either side. When something like this Godot, when it's bottlenecked by people's time or certain level of, I don't want to say like they are picky, but they certainly have a decision about the way they want to see things. Whether that's a good thing or bad thing, that's kind of where we are.
Yep. On that note of like companies with their own agendas, there are some of that. Like this guy,
Yeah.
he works at YouTube, and he works on Godot support for YouTube VR.
Hmm.
So his priorities are very different from the dev's priorities. So many times this person has tried to do things that are just like it's not how we do things here, and it's a little bit frustrating because clearly they want something, but it's not quite right for the engine.
Yeah.
So it can be a little bit frustrating when people insist on doing it a way that works best for their company.
Uh,
And
how
then,
come
yeah, go ahead.
we that from like third party companies getting their hands to the source engine into the source? I know that there's been a few controversies on just like Linux for PRs getting through from like Intel and Google that people were a little suspicious of. How much collaboration is there between Godot and like these third parties? Is there an active? Uh, is there act? Are you guys actively trying to support them, or are they just kind of the background? It's just sort of
It
you know.
depends on which. So YouTube VR is this guy, and he's not the best to work with, as I already said. But then Fire um, is employed, or I don't know if he's like contracted or what, but he works for a company that uses Godot, and they depend on like having good support for importing 3D models. So they pay him to fix problems that the company has, but he does it in a way that's like good for the engine. So the devs are always really happy when he submits work because it's usually good.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
The cat wins.
Yep, the cat, yes. And then I don't remember which usernames, but there's two people that work at the same company that try to contribute things to Godot, mostly related to networking, I think. And they do things in a way that's like not aligned with the engine, and they get into arguments a lot. Mostly because the engine developers like review their PR, tell them to change something, and then they won't change it, and they'll keep pestering the devs like, why hasn't this been merged yet? Why hasn't this been merged yet? Well, you didn't look at the feedback they gave you. So yeah, it very much depends on which third party. And I guess some of them are just kind of silent. So like the people that made Sonic Colors, um, nobody knew that it was even using Godot until people decompiled the game.
Yeah,
That's
and the engine was heavily changed, modified for releasing that game. What that's what I
Yep,
heard as the final official statement.
yep. It was built on top of Godot 3.1.1.
And then there is Mozilla Firefox browser. Uh, we could actually run Godot engine inside the browser. So I guess that's a success story.
Um, yeah, Godot's web support is actually not nearly as good as it should be, but yeah, it's there. Mostly just because it has like bad performance, and also Godot 4 is not going to have web browser support in most likely, just because uh, web GPU is not widely adopted by browsers, and Godot doesn't want to implement web GPU yet if it's not going to be usable in half the browsers anyway. Um, so so we just can't do Vulkan in the web browser.
Yeah. Well, things might change maybe. Time. Godot 4 is more production ready. Maybe these browsers will catch up and then change the decision.
Another interesting one that was sponsored by a company was Facebook. They sponsored the WebXR support, which is good for like if you want to publish to a game on the web and have it be playable on an Oculus Quest, because you can just go to a website and then you're playing a VR game in your Oculus Quest. Um, but realistically, WebXR is not like a very usable thing because I already mentioned that web has low performance. So imagine doing that in VR. It's
Yeah.
like double worse performance. There was a like demo that they did to like announce and like showcase it when it was ready and merged in the engine, and it was horribly choppy. Like the game would freeze for like a second at a time in some places. So I'm a little bit skeptical that that was actually an improvement to the engine. But I guess it doesn't hurt anybody that doesn't use the feature, so it's not really a bad thing.
I guess you can disable a feature, right?
Yeah, that feature in particular is a module. So I don't know if you know anything about Godot's internals, but there
I'm
is a folder called modules. I'm now streaming this. And if I go in here, these are all things that are like somewhat independent and easily disableable. You can disable like almost everything in this folder, but there are some exceptions, like the text server. You have to have at least one of those, otherwise you can't render text. But like most of these can be disabled. So if you don't use Visual Script, just turn it off. You don't need Ogvorbis, just turn it off.
Cool. So this is under the hood look at Godot.
Yep. It's not a secret or anything. I mean, anybody can.
No, of course, this code is open source. So if you could go back to the GitHub page, the list of peoples, I think the fifth image from the left on the top row, I think his name is Bastian Olay. No, maybe.
This
no.
one's Will Nations.
No, was on a different page then. Anyway,
yeah,
he's into AR VR stuff. I think I saw his pictures.
This guy.
Yeah.
He is the creator and sole maintainer of the VR support in general in Godot, not just like the web, but like also desktop support and yeah.
Also, countryman Ben Red.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this guy had to fight like tooth and nail to actually get the first version of the VR support in Godot, because there was some like question of like, well, Godot isn't really the best performing engine. Should we even bother with the VR support yet? But this guy like made a very strong argument to them and made a very good plugin. So, or not plugin, but a very good like add on to the engine that supports it.
See, that's one of the things that could set Godot apart from other engines. I mean, Unity is the big guy. Okay, Unreal 2. It's like it's kind of expected to have both of these engines to give VR support. But why not Godot, right? It's to break that stigma of like, oh, it's just a free open source engine. I mean, what good could it do? It's like, yeah, no, it does decent VR, so it should.
For the past like 5-6 years since VR has existed,
Unity
has been the king of VR. To the point that like even Valve uses Unity to develop their a lot of their VR stuff, even though they have Source 2, which has VR support.
I mean, I would most likely never touch VR, but from
that's mostly changing. But like for most of VR's life so far, Unity has been the king of VR. So I think pretty much every VR game is made in Unity.
So why not, a good contender? Godot could do a good job too. I mean, besides, pretty much, I mean, at some point in his devlogs, this guy was creating a lot of VR content. Switched to a different work, but if he's actually doing all the work for Godot, like, let him do it and just keep merging it. I mean, as long as it complies with the guidelines and such. More power to him.
I got a jet. It was great chatting with you guys and meeting everyone.
Cool. Nice.
Have a good night.
So, see you next time. Have a great night.
Yeah, for sure. Later.
Bye-bye. Yeah, this is we covered a lot of topics tonight. I like this.
Thanks for the information, Kumsal, and thanks Aaron for all the drama, the information, that.
Cool, man. Thank you. As usual, this is just open invitation to everybody. If you guys want to present something, just feel to bring it up, and I'll organize the meetup page and we'll announce it. And also, as I mentioned, the name has Toronto, but that has lost its meaning. So we could grow bigger. Maybe I'll actually make the page public so it won't be behind Meetup firewall.
Here's another option. I don't know if you'd be interested in this. In the main Godot server, they do have an auditorium set up, but it hasn't been used in a while. However, I'm good friends with several of the mods in that server. I guess for obvious reasons, because Godot developer. But like, if we wanted to do like a presentation to like many people, we could totally just like use the auditorium, and the few times we have used it, we've gotten like 50 people to show up. It's a cool format.
Cool. Yeah, we could try that. To be honest, I have mixed feelings about this, like Toronto, or like having Toronto in the name or not. Because from one perspective, the whole meetup thing has lost its function too. Because in the past, you would create a chapter or like your own city's some, like, pick a topic name, whatever, JavaScript Toronto, something like that. And these days, that really has no meaning at all. So, I mean, will Meetup go out of business? I wonder, because everybody is doing it over Discord now. So
I know some meetups are starting to be in person again. Like there's a over in Ann Arbor, which is Chicken City. There's a Japanese meetup that's every person. There's a game dev one as well. I haven't been there.
Yeah, they are trying to get back, right? So, which brings me to this sort of second perspective. That from like when people join these groups, it's part of joining because you want to meet like-minded people in your own city. That maybe there's some kind of familiarity, you feel close to home, and when it's people that you will never actually see is from all over the world, suddenly there's an element of feeling like in the middle of like a big place, like you are with everybody, so that closeness feeling is getting lost. I mean, I'm glad we have met, there's camaraderie, but I'm sometimes thinking whether local groups have that kind of sort of like nice sort of cozy feeling. I'm just going to be in the same city with other people.
I actually started go to meetups for the networking and meeting people, and the face-to-face communication that makes people remember your name and want to talk to you, reach out for your help in the future, that kind of thing. And that is definitely lost, especially on like larger Discord servers and stuff. I think you've done pretty well here, Kumsal, with having everyone have their name, and there's definitely like no other Discord server that I actually jump on video, so that's another thing.
Yeah, because that's kind of how I feel when people, if they think that they are just another icon, another sort of nickname, and they are not visible, but they're just sort of like looking in and then like dropping off. I don't really want people, like, I don't necessarily force people to contribute, but they should feel welcome to contribute, not just like on side there sort of observing. I just want to welcome people, and that's kind of where I stay in limbo, like whether it should go full online, like the way Darren suggested.
Was a pretty decent idea, like for like presentation nights, for example, there could be like an in-person presentation, and a video that broadcasts to maybe just the general Godot auditorium or something. Hop in there and watch. The actual meetup is in person. Not sure for show and tell. For show and tell, you could maybe do in person or online, but I think hybrid could work out really well for presentations.
It might, especially with Kyle's suggestion that if that place is open soon. Because sorry,
the border's open.
Yeah. It's they just recently opened it, right?
I think
today, yesterday.
I don't know.
Yeah,
sometime.
Wednesday, I think. Yeah, or they're opening soon. So I heard the news yesterday.
I know they're supposed to open up like, at least 2 months ago, but I haven't like tried. So, and, if I get turned away, I'll let you know.
You'll find out and tell us. Yeah, still closed. So maybe we'll get to see Aaron and Ben in real life too in the future. Who knows?
Yeah, like, yeah, because I'm in Australia, most of my friends are in America, and I'm usually on my computer
Yeah.
quite a lot. Yeah, but one day I do hope to like travel the world and meet all my online friends in real life and just spend a few moments with them, even if it's just like a random chat, like just meet them, see what they like in person. Man.
What I'm
That,
really
that,
hoping comes back soon is the Godot cons. I've
Yeah.
never been to one because I didn't really have like a ton of money to buy plane tickets or whatever when they did have them, and then COVID struck, and now I'm hoping that they bring those back so that I can like go to like those and like shake hands with the Godot developers I've been working for or working with for the past several years.
That'd be super cool. I actually, Gearbox actually gives you a conference budget that you can use every year. So I don't even have to pay for it.
Nice.
If,
So I guess Europe could be considered some like in the middle for I don't know, sort of geographically in the middle. I don't know. Like us North Americans could compromise. We could fly to Europe, and then Australian community could also meet us somewhere in Eastern Europe. So that would be the geographic sort of center.
So that's not actually a
How it
huge
works.
like improvement though.
Yeah. Yes.
Because the antipole of Australia is like like the Western Atlantic Ocean. Like
Yeah.
the antipole is the opposite side of the planet. So
Yeah.
both Europe and America are approximately the same way around the world.
Yeah. Sure.
it kind of just comes down to decision, really. Like, also budget, honestly. Like,
Yeah, like do you want to spend the money to buy a plane ticket and spend like 20 hours on a plane flying around the world? Because it's going to be approximately that regardless of where it is.
yeah, it's like what.
in Michigan.
Yeah, it's kind of like, why have multiple people fly all to this one foreign location where no one knows what they're doing, when you can just have a couple of people fly to the central location where you've already got people who are familiar with the physical surroundings.
By the way, maybe one of the few benefits the pandemic has brought to my life is, the plane ticket, traveling time, all that stuff. That I've attended so many conferences in the last year. Keep being home comfortable and networking too. And I don't like networking in person because it's kind of hard to know what their side likes, or they say something that I like or I. By the time you get to know that, you kind of feel like, well, there's this social awkwardness. You don't want to walk away. With these online meeting platforms, business meetings and whatever, everybody writes their interest and you kind of send each other invitation. I found a lot of benefits in that sense. Yeah. But yeah, meeting people otherwise is nice, but maybe not for conference sake anymore. Honestly, like I don't. Maybe that's changing too worldwide. It's not just me, but this has been my experience.
When it comes to picking a location for like a meetup, so specifically what comes to mind are like Western Europe, as you said. So probably like either France, England, or Belgium. I know a lot of Godot developers are from France, so it would make sense because then they could attend that, especially if it's a Godot con. And then in the U.S., I've met a lot of Godot people from Florida and a lot from North Carolina, so I think those are pretty good places. North Carolina is kind of like in the middle of the East Coast, so anybody that's north of there should have an easy time getting there too.
That's interesting. I would have thought, Texas or California, since those are like the two game developer hubs, and
It is actually surprising how few people that I meet online are from California. Like how you would expect it to be high, but for some reason it just isn't.
I
It might just be like a coincidence
Really
that
because,
the
like,
good word of Godot hasn't spread there, and everybody there is working with Unity or Unreal or something. I don't know.
that's what my I think there's a little bit of a disconnect between the current vanguard of the games industry and this upcoming generation of developers, you know, um, including me, because nobody at a Gearbox really knows what Godot is, and AAA game developer, they do game jams, or I'd say we use pretty, uh, latest technology, but nobody really knows what Godot is. We don't have any plans to support Godot with our online platform anytime soon. I'm hoping to advocate for that, but need customers to support, which we don't have. Um, at least not. I know not in Texas where Gearbox is located. Oh, your
But
thoughts
that's
on that?
another interesting fact too. You are, um, yeah, like remote working, like from Michigan to Texas. So that's also like an interesting. It's like, well, distance doesn't matter. Game engine choices are changing. Different world, really interesting.
We just opened an office in Quebec, and I think we already have one in Montreal, so might be there a few times as well. But
Yeah, I think I looked up their open positions, and not that I was going to apply. I mean, I have my own company anyway, so but just for fun's sake.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're unreal. Um, our internal stuff, I don't think will be not Unreal for at least probably will be for until it's a different company completely. Culture wise and just over time because it's
So, what do
works with
you guys think of Unreal? We kind of liked a few things and bitched a lot about Unity, and then there's the big elephant like Unreal 5, multi-billion polygons rendered, that kind of thing.
I think Unreal is cool. I uh, don't have mixed feelings because it's not easy to get stuff done like it is in Unity or Godot. It does things better than trying to solve the same problem in Unity. So it's just it's nice. It's not terrible. I prefer. I would like to solve whatever problem in Godot instead, because whether if it's efficiency, you can write a module for it, or GD native if you can get away with that. Um, just sometimes the feature you need isn't there. Um, Still learning Unreal a little bit too, even though I Unreal.
If you want just one engine that can do everything, you probably are going to have to go with either Unity or Godot. Although Godot won't get you those multi-billion triangle scenes. If you want to do
Right.
everything and you're okay with learning two engines, Unreal plus Godot is a good combo. And also, I excluded Unreal from the one engine does everything because Unreal does not do 2D. And you can try to make a flat game in Unreal, but it's not suited for it at all. But
Do you remember the old Unity 2D games before it had official 2D support? That's
Yeah,
and even now, Unity's 2D support is just flat 3D.
yeah.
Godot's 2D support is actually 2D rendering.
they just stick on a different camera, an orthographic camera onto
Yep.
to the editor.
Yeah, and I don't think that's an easy thing to tell people. Like when you make a claim like that, it's not real 2D. I don't think it's something a beginner could comprehend easily. What do you mean? It looks 2D. It's like, well, not really. You get the illusion of 2D, but
It's confusing to people
yeah,
when you are trying to rotate an object in 2D and it
yeah,
uses quaternions.
yeah, yeah. So
It's
yeah,
why if you look at a lot of like I noticed for like game jams and stuff, a lot of the Unity 2D games do like a sprite flip effect. Like almost all of them do it because they just rotate the z-axis. It has like a flip effect, a 3D flip effect, which is
yeah. In a sense, it's cool, right? But
I don't think there's necessarily a problem with it for like smaller projects until you
yeah,
start hitting certain limitations. I think it's hilarious that
Be-
people don't know what's going on.
yeah. Because I mean, from most people's perspective, at the end of the day, you are still moving pixels. What difference does it make if you're doing? No, there's big difference. So let's look at the stream.
So, in the topic of 2D versus 3D, one thing that is fairly nice to do in Unity is that if you really do want those like effects, or you need a z-axis for the logic in your game, it's there. I mean, it's not needed for most 2D games, but if you need it, it's there. So
Yeah.
that's cool. And it's not available with Godot's 2D. You can do it in Godot's 3D, but then you have to deal with things that are designed for 3D, so it's not exactly ideal. And that's why I made this add-on to show people another option. So this is both a demo and an add-on. It has a new main screen plugin for 2.5D. You can, like pan around, and you can like drag things around with the axes. And I implemented different like view modes. So you can do like an isometric game, or a top-down game, or a front-side game. And these are all rendered using Node2Ds, but it uses spatials for like the actual logic. So you kind of can do like what's in Unity, although there's 2 objects instead of, or like I guess 3 objects, because there's the 2D sprite, the 3D object, and then a node that merges them together. But this is an option.
Nice. So another example of adding adding radio buttons to the menu of a new plugin viewport.
Yep.
I mean, the whole system is cool, but I'm also looking at the way you implemented options in there too, and have the menu options too. Cool.
Yep. So in the 3D view, you can see that there's just a bunch of static bodies and kinetic body for the player, but there's nothing rendered here.
Very, very nice.
Yep.
That's cool.
Nobody's actually tried to use this for a project yet, but at least I answered somebody's question on how to do 2.5D games in Godot.
Next time a Unity developer complains to me, I'll send them your way.
Cool. Yeah, it's it's easy to make sort of final like harsh judgment on Unity or Unreal or Godot. Each has its own merits.
Yep. If you want to make a game that with 10 triangles on it,
yeah,
you can use Godot. If you want to make a game with 1 billion triangles, you gotta go to Unreal.
The biggest problem I have with Godot is that you just what are they called? Scriptable. In Unity, there's the idea of a scriptable object that you can use to modulate your game a little bit. Godot has resources, but you can't actually export resources.
you can.
Yet.
You can.
There's 2 PRs for them. there's two PRs for them, and there's like a weird workaround where you can make an editor tool to do it, but you
Specifically, what's
can't.
missing is that you can't export a custom resource with like the fancy integration with the editor.
Yeah,
I
so
did it to a certain extent, but you're right. It doesn't work as simple as just writing it in the code, like with the class name. Like you should be able to write export in brackets your custom resource class name. It doesn't work that way. It should, right?
I work a lot with like on my own projects. I work with a lot of not very technical people. So I like building. I like doing all like the heavy, dirty work
Yeah.
and building like tools and stuff, and then just having them either do very light GD script code.
Yeah.
But preferably, I just like to have some resources and
Yeah.
like just fill out the information, drag and drop
Pass
the
around.
sprite,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
be done. But right now, you have to teach them the entire resource system because it doesn't integrate in the editor really well, and it's very unintuitive. But let the developers know that getting those merged in would be really cool.
Yeah. I think I wrote some fancy code to make it available to the interface. But I think there were two problems that were fighting with each other. One was limiting the selection when you hit that arrow, which actually is going to let you choose the resource type. I want that to show only my custom resource. The other problem was if I could get that done, then it was not recognizing the internal variables of the instance of that resource. I could have one work.
So what Dialogic actually has a way to like for the dialects they call them like stories, I believe.
Hmm.
And they have a way where you can export a string and give it an editor hit of a dialogic story or something.
Okay.
What that'll do is it'll tell an editor tool to replace the export value of the string with like a drop down that has all possible values in there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel right, and if you dig around in the dialogic code, it's a little bit messy of an implementation. The big thing is that when it comes to a lot of the stuff is being built for non-technical people or not as technical people, and I feel like there's a lot of layers and elements going on as is right now, even with something as simple as what Dialogic has.
And this Dialogic, if I recall, it's the dialogue system, right?
Yeah, just a plugin.
Yeah.
Someone made for playing out like generic dialogue or RPG dialogue.
Yeah, I think I've seen YouTube videos of it by the developer, and I think it didn't come to my mind. That's what I was thinking of suggesting to Brian, but he kind of set his mind on writing his own anyway.
Yeah. I think he said he didn't like Dialogic anyhow, but
maybe he's tried already.
Yeah. He said he didn't like the theming in it, which I can. It is a little bit limited, but.
But sometimes if it's doing the job and you have your own business problem anyway, you could work on your own problem because that's going to take a lot of time anyway.
And it's like open source.
Yeah.
So you can make changes to it. It might just not be as intuitive.
No, but I think what I'm trying to say is sometimes, like you have an exam the next morning, but let me do the dishes first, and so you end up fixing the open source code. It's not exactly your project. So it's not your game anymore. You are fixing some code in an open source project.
What cool thing do you have now?
So I don't know how much time you guys would be like willing or interested in sinking into like contributing, but just thought I'd mention that one of the big things, very much not the only thing, but one of the big things is a challenge for the Godot developers is it's hard to know which things are desired by the community, and also it's possible that maybe the community member has an idea of how to do it differently, and it's just hard to know like what things are desired. So if you want to, you could totally look through like the pull requests and see give feedback on things. And if this list is too big, there is also you could just filter it. So in here I'm filtering by just mine. So I know this is very self-centered, but if you wanted to, you could just look through all mine and get feedback on that. There's also a page that lets you view pull requests filtered by team. So things that are related to the 2D editor, you can just look at those. Another place is the proposals repository, which is just a bunch of people writing documents, and some of these are just completely stupid. Like this one, it's make particles better, basically. But some of these proposals are really good. And there's also another tool that lets you sort through proposals and see which ones are the most supported ones. So you could give feedback on these.
Yeah, that first class custom resource support is the one we were just discussing.
Yep. Yeah. And interestingly, this one has 0 downvotes, so nobody is not in favor of it. It's just, I guess they haven't gotten around to it yet, or the developers haven't merged Will Nation stuff or reviewed it or whatever. I don't know. But clearly that's desired. So it's not a guarantee. If it gets to the top of this list, it'll be added, but it's likely. One example that I can give of something that was popular but wasn't added was people were asking for a Vim mode in the Godot script editor.
Oh.
But then the conclusion that the Godot developers decided was, well, if you want Vim, just use Vim, because Godot has the language server support.
Yeah, you could use VS Code to write code instead of Godot editor. Godot Engine editor.
Exactly. And with the language server, you get autocomplete for things. So yeah.
How moddable is the built-in script editor? Because I'm wondering if that's something that you could make a potential plugin for. I've seen the Python Python module. I think it's a module. Does editor support it opens Python files and supports Python files?
So if I recall correctly, the class for the code editor, it a generic text editor. So they share a lot of and the text editor I think is part of something you could use inside of a Godot project. But then okay, I was gonna say that the code edit was just for the editor, but actually no, this is in Scene GUI. So this is actually, you can use this inside of your own games too, or you could use it to make a plugin because it's exposed.
Yeah, there is a UI component that lets you write long text with indentation and line numbers. So I guess that's what you're saying, right? I think I've used it a few times, not in game context, but teaching some.
So one of the things I've kind of wanted is that I do a lot of GD native. I do a lot of C++ stuff nowadays. There's been a few times where I just want to say, hey, I just want to be able to double click on my native script and get my corresponding class up here in my code editor. Just in Godot, that'd be really easy to implement. And I was wondering if it'd be possible to maybe make a plugin for that.
I don't think there's any plans to.
I know.
But as a plugin, so yeah, you can totally make a plugin for that. I don't know how realistic it is. I haven't fully delved into that, but there's no plans to officially do languages other than GDScript in the built-in scripter.
I think that makes sense.
Well, there is. Well, the only other language that's built in with scripting is Visual Script. But that's not the text editor.
Is this a support plan for Visual Script. I have mixed feelings on it because, like, I know Unreal Blueprints are really popular with like certain game designers, but
Here's the status of Visual Script. The community begged for it like a couple of years ago, like 2017. So Rita's wrote the initial version. Rita's has won the ESD. And then it's been maintained a little bit by Fire. But generally speaking, there are 0 people working on Visual Script. It really has not changed at all since Godot 3.0. And, like, yeah, just nobody's working on it. So all the bugs that exist now and the features missing are the same ones that have been missing since Godot 3 because nobody's, like, been working on it.
okay, is there a desire for additional support there? 'Cause
From the Godot developers, nobody's interested. I'm not interested. Nobody else is interested.
I've been planning to work on it.
anything, so that's one reason why I'm asking. I don't really use it, but if people would use it, or
I think the big problem is that the people that want Visual Script and the people that can write C++ are 2 disjoint circles on a Venn diagram.
yeah, I my like intro to programming is GameMaker's scripting language. Well, yeah, it's scripting language and it's drag and drop, and I thought it's yeah.
So Ben said he's interested in using it or learning it. I couldn't hear.
Interested in like maintaining it.
I do remember, Ben, that I helped you get started with Visual Script a while ago. I don't know to what extent you ended up using it, but I do know that you took notes of like the things that are wrong with it if you wanted to improve them later.
Yeah, I am planning on actually fixing those things and like generally making it easier for beginners to use, because a problem like my interest with Visual Script is that it's a way for non-programmers to use it. But in a sense, like my coder brain tells me, all it is at the end of the day is just blocks and colors. That's all it is, right? So it couldn't be that hard to implement. So I mean, I know there are difficulties with implementing it because it's more of a visual side than anything. So
it's gonna be a lot of things in there are gonna be harder than you'd expect, because a lot of the stuff in Visual Script is like digging into the core underbellies of the engine. However, simply because nobody's worked on it for a long time, and there's still a ton of like things that can be fixed, I'm betting there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that you can quickly grab. And in general, if you decide to actually work on Visual Script and start doing things and submitting pull requests, I have a good feeling that those will be accepted without too much difficulty, simply because nobody else is working on it, and its work on it is sorely needed, and like so the devs would be happy if that was a thing.
yeah, so yeah, like sometime in the future, I will end up like when I'm not as busy with my education and I do have enough free time, then I will be. I am interested and I am willing to maintain parts of Godot, at least visual scripting, because that's like I I guess it's kind of what got, not exactly, but it's kind of what's one of the things that sparked my interest in programming. How it's like, oh my god, it can be this easy to learn. Like, so that's one of the reasons why I got into programming. But what you said about what you said before, Aaron, I think it was, how like C++ maintainers and like C++ users and Visual Script who are wanting them, they're 2 different people. Like, because Visual Scripts, they're not coders, so they don't know anything how they can help. But with C++, with those more programming users, they're interested in text-based programming, and they're not interested in helping the others in need.
So you are interested. So you're in that tiny sliver of overlap.
Yes, exactly. And I've honestly never met anyone who was in that tiny sliver, who's in that gap, like in that overlap.
To get to it quickly before you know too much.
I think you and Joseph are on the same boat.
I think the only aside from Ben, the only people that I know that have ever worked on Visual Script is Juan, Fire, and myself. Um, just a little bit though. I do a little bit of Visual Script as part of maintaining the demos for Godot because some of those are written in Visual Script. But like Visual Script, there's just like a ton of things wrong with it to the point that I never want to use it for anything serious, which makes me disincentivized to improve it. So it's like a chicken and egg problem for me.
Exactly.
I'm interested in it more for other people and building tools with it, or ways to make it useful for other people. You know, I do a lot of tools work. I do a lot of trying to solve technical problems for non-technical people.
Yeah.
So
when it comes to making tools,
is a good thing for me. Well, like to be more specific, um, like now it's not specifically like tools, but like tools integration or systems integration. So like for like a very heavy, let's say, inventory system, um, that's something that could be written in like C++. But it would be nice if a non-coder there was a way they could interact with that inventory system. Like a visual scripting would be nice right now. Anytime they have to do that, it's I have to generally teach them some sort of GD script to be able to accomplish that task.
Yeah, like going off of that, it's like exported variables are like pseudo kind of help. Like in a sense, these non-game programmers can be like, okay, hey, I want, I don't know, jump force to be tweaked a little bit. I want speed to increase, and that can easily be seen by non-coders. But it's like to grasp it and fully understand it, they have to look at the code. And I know that like some people just hate blocks of text and much prefer a flowchart kind of thing.
One of my the people I work with on the Tetraforce, Andrew, you've met him before, himself. I think he gave a talk here one time. Well, himself was only one here the other time, but he is mostly an artist. He's very non-technical, but just because he has needed to solve problems over the last year, he has kind of deep dove into GD script, and he's not like a full-on coder now, but it's definitely been forced to learn, which has slowed down some progress on some of the tasks we wanted to do, just because he had to take time away from doing the task to learn how to solve the task.
Yeah, and like one of my dreams, like maintaining sort of like a visual script thing, is kind of improving upon it, like making, because visual script, no one's going to use it forever, right? Like I know some Unreal devs use blueprints for a long time, and that's acceptable, but most
I'm gonna stop you there because there's one group of people you're forgetting about. People that have autism or some other like disorder in their brain. A lot of those people, they will just go into a panic attack if they see like a big block of text. So like Visual Script is actually also an accessibility thing, and those kind of people would want to use that for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, that's also what I was kind of getting into. Like, at the same time, I want it to be easy for people who want to use it forever, but at the same time, I want it to be easy for people who want to transition into blocks of text. So they're not so overwhelmed. Like, it's not a jump forward transition. It's like a gradual transition that's easier to learn and maintain skills necessary.
I actually want to contribute to the visual script conversation in a different way. It's not necessarily Godot's visual script part, but more about writing code visually in that sense. So actually gonna try to open a scene in Blender. I'll try to share my screen. I don't know if this actually has anything to do with Godot, like I said, but here's what the current problem is. This looks complicated enough. Well, this I kind of messed with this up anyway, but correct function. This top part. This is Blender's. This is a plugin in Blender called Serpents. So it's essentially visual scripting. This particular graph is letting you accept, like read a hexadecimal value, and it converts it to an integer value, so that f is 15, that kind of thing. So a is 10. This is responsible for this. Now, you might wonder why I actually did this. This is not the core thing that I'm doing. The core thing I'm doing is actually this. Run this. I'm trying to develop plugins for Blender. Even the simplest button that you want to output here, or maybe you want to put it in this area here, somewhere here. This takes a lot of boilerplate code in Blender. And just to add a button, and then there's a whole other boilerplate code that you write just to trigger the necessary function this button is going to do once it's triggered. So quickly, when you look at a few buttons, there's a lot of code. You could do all this work with a handful of nodes like this. I mean, in this case, this is not that, but you get my point. With this, with four of these, I was able to get a bunch of these. So this is, I don't know if it's possible in Godot, but something that you know is supposed to work, which takes a lot of different files or a bunch of lines of code that is sort of grouped as a node that is exposed to the visual editor or script editor. This might just be, I don't know, just a contribution from a different domain. Whether it's useful or not, I have never worked with visual scripting Godot, so. But here it is.
People have. I think that's partially just because it's not for. It doesn't feel complete. It sounds like Benjamin there kind of has a idea of what's going on. It's cool.
So this is the kind of thing that. By the way, I have actually never really seen Godot's visual script, but I'm guessing it is similar to this, that you have if-else blocks like this.
Yeah, so that I'm aware of, Godot Visual Script doesn't have switch state, match, switch, whatever. They don't have block conditioning. They have only if-else.
Okay, now I am watching your stream and I'm also recording your screen. Let's see.
Yep.
Oh, actually, this is Aaron's screen.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Okay.
So this is the Circle Pop demo, which is a very simple game made in Visual Script. You just have circles and you click on them to make them explode. And I think this is a very good example of what you can do with Visual Script. So these little boxes here, these are like, technically they're comments.
But they're more organizational things than anything.
Yeah.
Just the comments.
The comments in Visual Script are used for organizing because you could put these blocks in here and they have names like random uniform scale, random color, random position. And this is like very easy to follow because what I have here is the information is organized in a visual way.
Yeah.
There's not like a crazy amount of overlapping lines. Like you want to avoid those whenever possible in Visual Script, and you want to keep things organized. So we can clearly see that when it starts, it runs this block of code.
Yeah.
Then it runs this block of code. Then it runs here. And these are like the high level concepts for what it's doing. It's setting the scale, module, and position. And if you want to go into details, we have these here. And with these details, in running GeneScript, you could do this as like a function. But then, like, you could do a function for each one.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's quite as clean as this. Because it's organized visually, so you can follow the lines just to quickly see what it is rather than searching for the name in a piece of text.
Yeah.
And you also know that because you can see like what these are, they're only used here. It's clear to see where they're used because they have lines coming out of them.
Yeah.
In GDScript and other text code languages, you can't usually tell where things are used except for like an IDE's help because there's no visual indication of that. So this is, I think, a very good example of how Visual Script can make code better. That is not always the case. I think a lot of code is better in GDScript, but like this is one simple game that I think is much better in Visual Script.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes perfect sense because you see the reference. If it's used more than once or twice, you follow the lines going out and then.
Yep. Somebody who's new to programming might struggle with like this, but in GDScript form. But this is easy to figure out what things are where and how they're used and like what's the importance. And we also see like you see the white line. The white line is called the sequence, which is like the path of execution. It's just like which things are executed when. But I mean, obviously, the rest of this code is still executed.
Yeah.
But the way that it works is that the code, like in this block, is not executed until it's needed.
Yeah.
So it's needed here. So it's kind of like lazy execution. So that another great thing about this is that if you have a value that needs to be computed, and you can redo that computation anywhere you want just by dragging a new line if you have it organized like this, and it's just very easy to keep track of it, and it's only lazily executed. So like let's say you just needed it to be calculated once or whatever, then you'd have to like calculate it at the start, then store a value, but like what if it's never used? Then you calculate the value for nothing. But this is very easy to like if you end up not needing it, then there's just no block that pulls from it, so it doesn't get executed.
Yeah. So it's only executed at the time of when set scale is requesting the value for the variable value there. It's
Yep.
Yeah.
So it goes here, then here, then here, then here, then here, then back to here, then back to here.
Yeah.
Yep. So the color points are more like data lines, where it can transfer data. Like you can see here, let's go to random uniform scale and go to a multiplied by b, and we see the any tag on the right. That's the right. That's kind of like a. It's kind of like a return where it's returning this value and it's giving it to what it needs, giving what it needs to, and then configure the circle and add a set scale. It takes that a multiplied by b value, and then it uses that at its quote-unquote data input.
Yeah. Something else came to my mind since we've been discussing plugins tonight, and these, let's say in this case, random uniform scale, that frame itself, that actually acts like a recipe. That these recipes could be stored in a different plugin system that you could we should look at it, search by name, and you say, okay, add this recipe to my graph, that you don't end up rewriting this. So you have a random uniform scale, random color blocks that are injected into this graph. So
exactly. So you could have like a plugin that adds in custom blocks with their own.
Because with the code, I mean, we tend to do that with like shoving a lot of utility functions and making the utility function a singleton. But you still need to remember the name, and you gotta read the code. There's a I mean, this looks like a picture, and as the saying goes, sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words, that kind of thing. So, I mean, if they are small enough recipes like this, there's some benefit to storing them usually.
I think it would almost be nice if that was part of Visual Script, if it had like a way to save blocks of things to be reused or referenced again.
Yeah,
Functions, right? But
yeah, I could be mistaken here, but yeah, there are functions in Visual Script, so you can just put like these small things, like I don't know, I'm not sure what Aaron used here as the example, but you could use these function of custom set position. Let's just say that was just a custom thing that a user created. You can reuse that by dragging the function, I believe, to the Visual Script, the graph. I believe that, yeah.
Yeah, like that.
I think
or does that not work? Yeah, that works.
No, it does. That is exactly how it works. Actually, yeah. I could wire that up, so now that'll run ready every single time it makes a new circle.
And in the function, you can like create data inputs and data outputs, which is like take these values, return this value.
Actually, I just realized something. This ready function does nothing. I don't know why this is here. This needs to be removed from the demo. And you can, and here's one way that you can. There's actually multiple ways that you can see that it does nothing. First of all, the white sequence arrow should never point into anything except a sequence arrow.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's pointing into a value is completely wrong. Another way that's easy to tell is that this output
is not going anywhere.
It's not used. This is just a function that does math. So if the output, if there's a line coming out of here, it's not used.
What is the value being set to then, in that case, when it's set to arrow?
So in this case, I don't actually know what it does, if it like throws an error or like it just silently fails or what, but this is completely broken here.
I'm not even sure how it connected in the first place.
That looks like a meaningless connection there.
It is a meaningless connection.
Yeah. There are 3 variables, and the values look 0, but they are never going to be set because they were not. It didn't look like something was triggering them, or computation.
Yeah. Well, thanks for exploring this project with me. I'm going to go ahead and commit. that fix of removing the useless thing, because that's stupid.
We have made our first contribution to the Godot source code, I guess. So.
Oh yay!
Congratulations!
Yes. Awesome. So we would take 500 or more presentation nights like this to finish the whole work. Cool.
Well, if you want to fix all the problems of Visual Script, it's gonna take you years. There's a lot. So just to give a quick example, one of the things that is broken in Visual Script is arrays. You just can't use them. The functionality is not there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's critical things like setting a value in an array is not available.
Oh. That sounds crucial.
Yep, so it's good for CirclePop. It's not good for much else. I mean, you can make Pong with it, but if you try to do anything complicated, it doesn't work.
Yeah, While Aaron was helping me learn Visual Script, I was planning on making my first ever game, my full-fledged platformer in Visual Script. I only got like movement to work because I couldn't be bothered. But like even that, like for me as more of a text-based guy, it was just like it was hard, honestly. And I was doing so many things wrong, like, oh, you're not like getting a constant. You're making a variable for each thing you want to do. Like, that was one thing that took so many variables up, and it's just like that's kind of what I want to improve with the Visual Script. Like, it should just be easier to learn.
Yeah.
And if not that, at least make tutorials that are easy to learn.
So, what I have pulled up right now is Pong in Visual Script, which is not totally the best example of Visual Script. Like, it's not an amazing example like Circle Pop, but this is an example of how you can make a little bit more of a complicated game. And in Godot 4.0, these 3 blocks here can be simplified to 1 block in Godot 4.
Yep, it's get access, I believe.
Yes. And that's one thing that is like particularly annoying because this looks like a mess of crisscrossing. It's actually pretty simple when you look at it, but like at first glance it looks crazy. And most of this is just like, okay, we do a multiplication, we do an addition, we clamp it. It's mostly easy to follow. This one's interesting. So you can actually just put in small snippets of GDScript. But I would generally recommend against this as a best practice. But in this case, it's easy to understand, so I think it's fine.
I just thought of the most bizarre way of using Visual Script. You dump 100 line of GDScript code into that area, and you call it Visual Script.
Oh,
That's
God,
cursed.
yeah. Like, I think my player script, it was about like, I don't know, 20 lines of code.
Yeah.
And it's such a huge graph. I just couldn't imagine working on like 100 lines. Or even creating more scripts than one. Oh god.
So in this case, if when the area is entered, if it's ball or not, that's
Yep, this is the visual script for the wall code, which is very simple. Just make the ball bounce off it. Actually, no, not bounce off it. This is for the left and the right wall, which resets the object.
Yeah.
And here's the code for the ball, which just at first glance, I'm wondering why these arrows are black. What the heck?
That is very interesting.
That's a bug. They're supposed to be white always, and I can't even see the little arrows.
And neither the circles that should be there, right? Connect.
Yeah.
Or the arrows.
Yep.
Yeah, like there's something missing where they are connected.
Yep.
The inputs for the
We can see the rest of this is not too complicated.
Yeah.
We can see that delta is used twice. We can see that we just multiply delta by 2, add it with speed, and set the speed to that, and move the ball based on the speed delta direction. We just use the delta again. We use the direction, multiply it, we add to the position. That's pretty simple. I think this is pretty good visual script.
Cool.
Yeah, so here's an example of creating a function in Visual Script.
Yeah, the reset is special. Yeah, I'm actually kind of this it looks weird, super weird, but I think literally the only thing that's missing is the arrows and the white color. I don't know why it looks so wrong.
Yeah, I'm very curious as into why it's showing up as black. What code could be making that happen?
close it and then open it again. Does it fix itself or?
I hit close all and it closes one. That's another Godot bug.
Yep.
Okay, it did work by closing it and opening it again.
It's
I
not
have no
part of
idea.
the save data. It's something about loading it, maybe? Or
Yeah, and actually, there's another thing that was missing. These boxes weren't colored before, but now they are, so that looks a lot better. Because if I haven't used this visual script long enough to memorize the colors, but theoretically, if you use this enough, the colors could be helpful to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like honestly, right now because I'm not entirely sure, I don't see what the colors are for. But
So
I think
the
red are like
orange is
functions.
a method call. The
Yeah.
purple is the
Oh,
math operations,
yeah.
and the white is specifically execution, the path of execution. So things like the function and the conditionals, like if statements, are all white. Everything that like the arrows are white. Everything that controls the path of execution is white.
Yeah,
And then I guess the green is get.
and objects are that light blue.
I saw that a set was a Git as well. On the bold.bs.
Yeah, set. So I guess that just affects the properties or something.
Getter and setters.
Get set get. This is I think this is a method call, but
Yeah.
really it should be a just a property get. Where the
it's yeah, get position as the
yeah.
method.
So
Yeah.
here's another bug. There's no property for the position. There's just a get and a set method. And they should have a property because GScript has it, C# has it. Every language except C++ should have it. Like everything except GNative should have it. So like the fact that Visual Script doesn't have properties here is a bug.
But you're on 3.3. That actually is coming in the new GDScript in 4. The property. You mean the
No,
set?
properties are already in Godot 3.
Oh,
They're just clunkier.
okay.
So like the properties in Godot 4 behave a lot more like C# properties.
Yeah.
The ones in Godot 3, they can they exist, but they're just a bit weird. So properties are not a new thing; they're just an improved thing.
They're just kind of there, waiting for someone to improve it on them.
Yeah, I can actually quickly make an example of what properties are like in the current GDScript if you want to see.
Go ahead. So that's what I would use.
I believe you can even use the same variable. You just can't use self. I believe you can actually set my property equals.
Yeah, you could. So I'm actually familiar with this, but I was talking about the 4.0 GDScript get set as like a indented that looked like C# way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm already doing this. Oh, you are okay. Yeah, same thing. Return backing.
yeah. So this is how. Forget one of those.
Yeah.
This is how it's done in Godot 3.
Yeah.
It's subpar though. Yeah, as you said in Godot 4, it uses this more C# like syntax of having it built into the thing, which makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. I was actually okay with this, to be honest. This way of set get. Yeah, maybe the indented way that looks more sharp. That might be welcome too.
Yeah, I mean it's not really a big deal, but
No.
it is definitely an improvement in Godot 4, so I'm happy.
Yeah.
I honestly never knew that set get line was a thing.
Yeah.
It's pretty useful.
Yeah.
So I'm always a little wary with setters and gutters because I don't want to. When another person is interacting with them, I don't want them to be confused with what it's doing and think it's I don't want it to do more than you think it would do.
That's
You're
one.
saying-
That's one thing that's a little bit nifty about C# is the naming convention, where you use camel case for fields and Pascal case for properties, so it's easy to tell which is which, while still having the convenience of the property.
I think with over time there will be some standards to Godot. I feel like a lot of developers are still kind of figuring out what the best way to do everything is. Time.
But so far, I
I
mean,
don't.
as far as my selfish needs go, I would definitely welcome that custom resource support in the inspector. That would be good enough for me.
That could get merged in.
Yeah.
I'm so I was so disappointed when I was messing around with Godot 4 and it wasn't there either.
Yeah. But I mean, as Aaron mentioned, we should utilize those resources he showed us to upload things. So maybe the more demand there is, maybe the faster some of those things will be merged and we'll use them sooner.
Yeah, let me actually link all of the things that I have opened.
Cool. Thank you again. If you have final comments, words, feel free.
It sounds great, and today was great too. So this was awesome.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thank you.
this community so far seems nice.
Cool. Thank you.
Nice
So,
to meet you all.
Benjamin and Aaron and Juan.
Who knows? I might show my face next time. I might reveal the curtains.
Who would have thought that a server named after a city in Canada has nice people in it?
Cool. So, see you all next time.
See ya.
Okay. Bye bye.